last 2 or so months, the diva of Dump Divas Kat Engelbert, along with players in the WNBA who are desperately fighting for money they haven't earned, they have been congregating every Sunday morning at Woke United Methodist like they usually do. But instead of praying to their unrisen King George Floyd and demanding their usual prayer request, chartered flights, an increased supply of Just for Men, complimentary batteries for recently donated dildos, directions for the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow so they can collect $1 million salaries. Instead of their usual request, the WNBA and its players, they have been asking Father George to heal the great white hope, Caitlyn Clark.
For months, the WNBA has been parading around numbers, pushing headlines about record-breaking growth. League executives bragged about sold-out arenas, rising TV contracts, and a new golden era for women's basketball. But then reality hit like a brick wall. The very moment Caitlyn Clark went down with an injury, all that momentum they were bragging about evaporated in seconds. Attendance dipped immediately. Ratings that had been climbing suddenly flatlined. National broadcasters who had been circling her games like vultures were suddenly left scrambling with nothing to market. And here's the uncomfortable truth nobody inside league offices dares to say out loud. Without Caitlyn Clark, there is no WNBA identity. The player they mocked, minimized, and even called overrated just months earlier has become the single lifeline for the league's survival. That's not just irony. That's desperation on full display. What was supposed to be the league's biggest success story has exposed its most dangerous weakness. The WNBA doesn't have a system. It has Caitlyn Clark. And when she's not on the court, the illusion of progress collapses. Caitlyn Clark wasn't just another rookie stepping onto the hardwood. She was a once-in-a-generation spectacle, a walking headline. When she played, everything shifted. Indiana Fever games suddenly became primetime television. Networks that had spent years burying women's basketball at odd hours were suddenly giving Clark's matchups spotlight billing. The results? Industry insiders were floored. Some of her broadcasts didn't just do well, they beat Major League Baseball games airing at the same time. Think about that. A rookie in her very first professional season drawing numbers that rivaled one of America's oldest sports institutions. But her impact went far beyond the screen. Ticket sales told the same story. Arenas that had been half empty for years started selling out within hours whenever her name was on the schedule. Entire sections of seats vanished online the moment fans realized the Fever were coming to town. Jersey sales? Off the charts. Within weeks of her debut, Clark's number 22 was outselling the combined merchandise of entire rosters. At some arenas, merchandise tables were stripped clean before halftime, fans leaving with bags stuffed like they were at a playoff game. The ripple effect was undeniable. Cities that had struggled for decades to get even a fraction of attendance suddenly looked alive again. Kids showed up with handmade posters. Adults who had never once considered watching women's basketball were glued to every highlight clip she produced. ESPN and social media platforms built entire segments around her logo-range three-pointers, her fiery competitiveness, and her ability to shift momentum with a single play. For the first time in league history, casual sports fans weren't just hearing about women's basketball. They were talking about it, debating it, arguing over it, and buying into it.
Turn to practice. Hell, at this point, I don't even know if she's on the Huffy. Well, KC, don't you mean the treadmill? The WNBA can't afford a treadmill. When players are rehabbing injuries or looking to warm up, the WNBA provides them with a used Huffy or sometimes a Schwinn. But either way, with 10 or so days left in the regular season, Caitlyn Clark is nowhere near ready to return. But according to Stephanie White, we could see the Rue from Waterloo on the court soon.
And all of that was tied to one player. The WNBA, a league that had spent decades begging for recognition, finally had its breakout moment. But instead of being built on a foundation of stars, it was resting entirely on the shoulders of a 22-year-old rookie from Iowa. And that's the problem. When your entire house is built on one pillar, the moment that pillar cracks, the whole thing shakes. Then came the setback. One injury, and suddenly the WNBA's house of cards collapsed. Attendance dipped sharply. Playoff chatter, which should have been at its peak, became background noise. Social media conversations slowed to a crawl. Even ESPN, which had been milking Clark's name for months, started scrambling to fill airtime with fluff stories about Angel Reese's latest outfit or Sabrina Ionescu doing yet another three-point challenge. But none of it moved the needle. None of it replaced Clark. Networks noticed. Sponsors noticed. And behind closed doors, executives realized what fans already knew. The WNBA wasn't built to survive without its biggest star. The twist in all this is almost unbelievable. Just months ago, players across the league were rolling their eyes at the endless Caitlyn Clark coverage. Some mocked her openly. Others took cheap shots on the court. Even commentators insisted the WNBA was more than one player. But when she disappeared, the truth came out fast. Now those same critics are quietly hoping she returns. Why? Because when Clark plays, their paychecks grow. When Clark plays, their names trend. When Clark plays, they matter. And when she doesn't, they vanish back into obscurity. They'll never say it out loud. Too much pride for that. But make no mistake, every player in the league knows it. Stephanie White, head coach of the Indiana Fever, has even gone on record suggesting she'd like Clark to return before the playoffs, maybe even in the regular season. Think about that for a second. What coach puts an injured franchise player back on the court just to squeeze out a few extra headlines? A coach under pressure. A league under pressure. Networks begging for content. Sponsors asking hard questions. The responsible decision would be to sit Clark out and protect her long-term health. But the desperate decision is to push her back early, injured or not, because survival today matters more than tomorrow. That's where the WNBA is right now. Desperation mode. At its core, this isn't about basketball. It's about economics. The league's deals with ESPN, ABC, and streaming platforms were built on one promise. Caitlyn Clark equals ratings. Remove her from the equation, and those contracts don't look nearly as attractive. Advertisers who signed up for the Clark effect aren't excited to sponsor quiet playoff games with half-empty arenas. Corporate partners don't want highlight reels that nobody clicks on. And the players who've been demanding NBA-level salaries? Reality is hitting hard. Without Clark, those numbers are fantasy.
Hey, George, it's me, Kathy E. We're in deep shit. The networks are expecting big ratings for the playoffs, and there is absolutely no way these unknown players who think they are stars can deliver. I really need a miracle, Father. Can you please heal the injuries that Caitlyn Clark is dealing with?
You can't argue for million-dollar contracts when casual fans don't even realize the postseason is happening. What makes this all even more dangerous is the position Clark herself is in. She has already been targeted by physical play more than any other rookie. Hard fouls, cheap shots, constant trash talk. Sophie Cunningham even acted like her unofficial bodyguard before going down with a season-ending injury. Without that protection, Clark's return would put her directly in the line of fire. Rushing back from an injury in that environment isn't just reckless, it could derail her entire career. And for what? To give the league a temporary ratings bump? To bail out executives who spent the past year dismissing her value? It's not just unfair. It's absurd. Here's the cold truth. Caitlyn Clark doesn't need the WNBA. She could walk away tomorrow and still be a global name. She has endorsement deals lined up with brands bigger than the league itself. Overseas teams would pay fortunes for her signature. She could tour the country shooting logo threes in packed gyms and still draw more fans than most WNBA franchises combined. But the WNBA? They can't survive without her. Every record-breaking stat the league bragged about this year directly tied back to her name. Record attendance? Only when she was on the road. Record viewership? Only when her team was on TV. Viral clips? All her highlights. Strip Caitlyn Clark out of the equation, and those records vanish like smoke. And the players know it. Bigger ratings mean bigger salaries. More buzz means more endorsement opportunities. Without Clark, all of that shrinks. Suddenly, the dream of million-dollar paydays fades. Suddenly, the "we deserve equal respect" narrative falls flat, because equal respect doesn't translate into equal interest. Crowds don't show up for the collective. Crowds show up for the star. And right now, the WNBA has exactly one true star. That's not a knock on Angel Reese, Aya Wilson, or Sabrina Ionescu. They're talented athletes. But none of them move the needle for casual fans the way Clark does. That's just reality. If the league mishandles this, if they rush her back, if she gets hurt worse, if fans feel she's being exploited, it could trigger a collapse the WNBA may never recover from. Every bad season makes sponsors rethink their investment. Every ratings dip makes networks question future deals. Every moment without Clark exposes just how fragile the league's foundation really is. The WNBA has been coasting on her name since draft night, and now the bill is due. Without her, the postseason looks invisible. With her, everyone pretends to care. It's a brutal position for any athlete to be in, carrying not just a franchise, but an entire league on her shoulders. And here's the ultimate twist. Caitlyn Clark owes the WNBA nothing. Not after the mockery. Not after the targeting. Not after the league tried to pretend they didn't need her.
All season. There is absolutely no reason for Caitlyn Clark to return. But according to Stephanie White, the head coach of the Indiana Felines, not only is she hoping that Caitlyn Clark returns for the playoffs, Steph wants to see the Roo from Waterloo back on the court in the regular season. The question is why?
Every ticket sold, every headline written, every sponsorship dollar collected, they owe her. She made them relevant. She gave them attention. And now they're begging her to come back and save them. But should she? Should Caitlyn Clark risk her long-term career to rescue a league that's been tearing her down since day one? Or should she sit out, heal fully, and let the WNBA face the consequences of putting all its eggs in one basket and dropping it the second she got hurt? That's the real question. So tell me, what do you think? Should Clark step back on the court to carry the league? Or should she let the WNBA deal with the mess it created? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and don't miss the next breakdown, because this story is only getting bigger.